systems that we have developed that include an enterprise resource planning systems, among others. So in addition to all that, we also offer training, and that is where we find internships, then university mentorships. That is why we find this business that we are doing here today. So as usual, I want to remind you guys that it's good to have you, and it is good that we are all learning, and we are here to learn from each other. There are lots of things that I don't know, and I hope that I can learn those from you, and I will teach you what I know. Now, whatever I cover here is basically what we do in real life. Whatever I cover here is basically what you do. Whatever I take you through, how we define those requirements, how we discussed them the last time we met, that's the same thing that actually happens in real life. Now, all of us are beyond 18 years, so feel free to express yourself. No answer is wrong, and we shall move very well. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I show you the agenda for today. Okay, kindly confirm if you are able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So this is today's agenda, 29th of June, 2024. Now we have finished the introductions. So the last time we met, we had a look at the requirement specification document, and we thoroughly went through it to understand what is required of the project that we are going to be developing. And I remember we went on and we got an assignment to go and work on. We were requested to work on to come up with an ER diagram, to pull out the entities as they were defined in the document that we discussed. I hope we have been able to do that. Is there anyone who wasn't able to design an ER diagram?
I think we all tried.
Yeah, I guess we all did. But particularly, yeah. However, in particular, I received the one of Joel. I haven't received the others. But no worries. Most of the entities in that document are actually very, very clear. Things like driver, truck, request. Some of them are very clear. For example, you can actually think out loud and say, I know this driver is probably going to be driving this one truck. And I know a client can maybe make a request. And this client can have as many requests. So most of it can actually be thought through, but it's good practice to come up with the diagrams so that it is easier to derive those entities. Now that ER diagram is actually very important because a lot of work has to be invested in that modeling. because that modeling alone is what makes up the whole system. Of course, there is room to improve it in case you find that you have already started working on the system, then you reach a point and you find that there is something you never captured on maybe a driver. There is always room to go and make those improvements. However, I want to note out that that should be the stage that actually takes some good amount of time to understand how those different entities relate to each other. When you have a very bad modeling, you're going to have issues with, for example, the performance of your system. If at all you did not model the things well, maybe it also has affected the normalization of your tables. You're going to have a lot of what are they called? A lot of data anomalies, things of the kind. So it's very important that that bit of modeling is really important. Now, as planned, I think we have discussed what we previously did. So when they talk about models, what comes into your mind? Anyone with a suggestion of what comes? What comes into your mind when you hear models, for example?
So let me try.
It's well.
Model like classes. They are like classes for managing entities.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's it. That is the model in simple terms. In our .NET development, a model is basically a class. So this class usually represents data and also defines the structure of that data. And these models that we have are the actual entities in your ER diagrams. Now, those entities are the actual tables that we're going to have in the database. Now, most of this thing is going to be really practical because it is better when it is practical instead of explaining it in theoretical terms. But in case you have studied objects, classes, and all that, that is what we are talking about. The same class, which is a blueprint from where objects are created, that is the same class that we are talking about here, which becomes a model and then a database table. So some of these things we had actually covered them when we were still having those sessions with all the students. However, we noticed that some of the students had actually been left out. So we decided that as we guide you guys to develop the track loading application, we just go in as we remind you what we went through. Things like models, we wouldn't be repeating it, but it's nice to remind ourselves so that we are all able to move on the same page. So there's a concept called .NET. Now, .NET is a collection of all tools that Microsoft has put together to help us in development of various solutions, ranging from web applications, from mobile applications, desktop applications. So it's like a whole collection of all those tools and technologies to help us in achieving the development of those solutions. So in there we have a framework called .NET Core. Now this is one of the latest frameworks. In fact, .NET Core is a cross-platform framework. When I say cross-platform, I mean that if you develop your system or your web application in .NET Core, it means you can go on a Linux server and install it there, and people are going to be able to access it. It also means that you can also go on a Windows server and install the same application there. They'll be able to install it. They will be able to access it because .NET Core is cross-platform. That's what we mean when we say cross-platform. In contrast to .NET Framework. I don't know whether you have heard about .NET Framework, but those days when we're installing Windows 7, they'll be like, this app requires .NET Framework, so install it. So this is one of the old technologies. However, some applications still use it, but this one was only for Windows. So if you developed an application in .NET Framework, there was no way. Oh, there were many other ways, by the way, but particularly there was no way you could install this on a Linux machine. It was basically running on Windows. So now what is .NET Core Razor Pages? Now these gentlemen and ladies of Microsoft have come up with technologies to help us develop web applications, specifically web applications. As I told you that .NET Core has a whole ecosystem of all other frameworks, like for mobile apps, for desktop apps, for artificial intelligence. Now, even web applications, we have been provided a framework called .NET Core Razor Pages. Now, there is also another one called .NET Core MVC, which stands for Models, Views, and Controllers. Now, this is the most recommended for beginners, and this .NET Core MVC is the most recommended for people who have some experience, who are not basically learning from scratch. So for our case, since we are learning, we are going to be using Razor Pages. Now, remember, they all achieve the same goal. There are just a few concepts that change. And if you're competent with .NET Core Razor Pages, you can actually develop applications even in .NET Core MVC. We have any question at that point?
Not really, sir.
Okay, that is well noted. So I believe I've explained the basics of .NET Core Razor Pages. Now I didn't go into the depth of what this all entails, how they came up with all that, but all this information is actually available. In case you get some time, you can go and read about the ecosystem of the .NET Core. You can read, some other knowledge some other things that you could learn from this. So basically, that is the .NET Core Razor Pages. So the next task is to create a project and then add some models. Now, I know most of you have done this, but I don't know if any has actually done it in Razor Pages. Do we have any member who has created a project utilizing .NET Core Razor pages instead of MVC?
No, sir.
Because
I haven't tried
I
it yet.
understand the other time we created projects, but mostly were in MVC. Okay. So do we are you using your laptops on this call?
Yes.
I'm using a phone,
Okay.
but I have a laptop on the side.
Okay, if we have someone who is using a laptop, I'm going to request you to share your screen, and then we just add a few models and see what we can do. Okay, let me stop sharing. Whoever is ready to share your screen, you can share. However, something to note is that you should have Visual Studio installed on your machine.
Let me share my screen.
All right, all right.
Is my screen being shared?
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
it
it
is
is.
trying to appear. I haven't seen this side actually.
It's showing Teams is sharing your screen and audio, but I'm not seeing also it's not sharing. Let me try again.
But I'm seeing.
You're seeing it?
It's back now.
How about the rest?
Okay, I think this might be maybe my network.
We
Because
are seeing it.
I'm only seeing a blank screen. Seeing a blank screen. Okay, now it has appeared. So we can go to Visual Studio and then create any project. That's the last option on the right side. So you're going to select I think they are still loading. You see ASP.NET Core web app, in brackets, Razor Pages. That's the one we're selecting. It is number 4 from the top. So after selecting that, you hit next. Now this, you only do it once when you're creating the project. Basically, it's something you do once for every new project. So you're going to give it a name and then the folder where you want to save it. So for this demo, for demonstration purposes, we can create maybe, let's call it school application. Yeah, he wrote cool. That's also fine. Create. I hope you selected create. I see it is still showing me the additional information.
Do I leave this additional information part?
Yeah, that's okay. .NET 8, authentication type none. That's fine. You can just create.
Right.
Okay, as you can see, our app has been created. You try to run it. Try to run it and we see. It is still building. So as it builds, when you're done running it, you're going to create a folder within the solution. And we can call it, we are going to call that folder models. So we usually create different folders basically for organizing your work. And usually you'd find that, what should I call it? But I think this is at an early stage. But there is there are many ways to organize your application. For example, you could create class libraries whereby you create the audio models in a specific class library, and then all your interfaces, your service classes in a different class project also. But to keep things simple, we are going to create everything in that same solution. Now, when I say solution, where you're seeing on the right-hand side of that screen, you see something that says Solution Explorer. Now, below you're seeing the name of the application. You see it says Solution Cool Application, 1 of 1 project. So basically, it means in this application of yours, in this solution, you have only one project. Now, you can have as many projects as you want. So to keep things simple, we're going to basically have one project for this, for the track loading application as well. I believe it is running. You could check in the browser and see. Is it possible to check the browser? It is probably running in the background.
It's open. I opened it. It's here.
Okay. All right.
Maybe there is lag.
Yeah, it's all right. So you can go ahead and create a folder called models. And you're going to create a folder called models. In that same, yes, add. So there you select add, and then you say folder, then say models. Now in there, you can create 2 models, basically 2 classes. One of the classes, you're going to call it student, like student. Then another model, you're going to call it course. Then another model, you're going to call it course unit. Now, the same thing that we are creating here is the same way you're going to be creating the applications, the track loading applications. I remember we had decided that you should come up with groups. I don't know whether those groups were created, but next time when we are meeting, we shall be having, basically we shall be reviewing the project, your progress on the implementation as we guide you on the next steps and what to implement and the best way to implement them. Now, as I said, we are actually keeping things simple so that they are very easy for everyone to understand. So as you can see, the 3 classes have been created. Now, in those classes, you're going to add properties. the properties things like ID, name. For example, a student has a name. Then of course you have an ID. Then you have date of birth. That is for the case of students. And then for the course, you could have the course, maybe course code. I'm assuming that is the CS 2001, for example, as the course code. Now, the way we create properties in here, those are fields. The way we create properties, instead of private string name, we're going to say public string, then you capitalize name. You capitalize the first letter. For example, name should have capital N. And then just after the name, you're going to open curly brackets. Then you write get set, just like the appearing there. Okay, does anyone have any idea why we're doing it like that? Joel, the programmer, do you have?
I think we're doing it because we're going to use this model to construct the database. So when we're inputting things, we use the get to retrieve. Then the set is to what? To insert something in the database.
Yes, basically those guys, we just use them to like here, it get returns you a value, and set, you give it a value that you want it to have. Those are the properties. Now there is a difference between fields and properties. If you get some time, you can try to make some research and look at the difference between a field and then a property. What you had defined at first were fields. These are basically properties. So that is public. Okay, you have a name, then you have an age. Now, before those two, just above the name, you're going to add ID. Public GUID space ID. Also get set. It's okay, you can go with that. It's fine. You can say public int. Let's keep it int for now. Yeah. Basically just like that. Now, something to note here is that when you, okay, in other systems, you will find that they may be using a different kind of primary key. They can choose to say, we want to use a long, we want to use a string, want to use, but strings, my dear, you have to ensure that they're unique. So that's why they don't recommend them. But another data type that is mostly used especially since it is something that is also unique, is a GUID. GUID is auto-generated. Basically, when you say new GUID, it generates a number, it generates an ID, a very long string that is unique every time you generate it. So you'll find that in some systems, they're using GUIDs instead of int as primary keys. So I'm mentioning primary key. That line number 5, public int ID get set, is going to be seen as the primary key. Now, we are using something called an ORM. You're going to get to know what it is, but there is a concept called entity framework. I think we talked about it someday. Now, this concept of entity framework makes it easy for us to communicate with the database, either when we are sending data, when we are receiving data, updating. So basically, it makes things very easy. So when you're using entity framework, whichever field you give ID, usually that is going to be seen as the primary key. I hope that is clear. So we can create you can add the fields, the properties rather, to also course and course unit. Don't forget the ID for each of them. Okay, I think that is it. Now, in the modeling that you did in your ER diagram, you had foreign keys, you had primary keys. Now, there is a way we add foreign keys in this modeling that we are doing. By the way, this is the modeling I was talking about, basically creating your classes and maybe connecting them if they are connected. So to add a foreign key, for example, assuming that in our business logic, in our school, a student can do one course. By the way, that's not for every school, because some schools a student can do more than one course. But let us assume that maybe a student can do, I think we can make it do more than one course. Because now, like if I go to Udemy and I sign up for a course, I can actually sign up for as many as I want. So we want to have such a relationship. That means that you have like one student taking many courses. Or maybe you keep it simple for the start. Let us just consider like our universities. One student does one course. For example, you enroll and you say, I want to do BCS, and that's it. Until you're done with that, you cannot do BIT. So you can keep it like that. So in that case, you'll find that one student is doing one course. So what that translates to, you realize I'm talking about the student and then the course. It means that when I'm creating a student, I should provide the course this student is going to do. Basically, when you go to create your student, on the form, you should be able to enter the student name, enter the date of birth, and also have like a drop down that says course the guy is doing. Then I should select that course, BCS, and then I save that student. Now, when you want something like that, you're going to have to add a foreign key in your students table. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so you're going to go on the student model, and you're going to add a foreign key of the course. Just below the public int age, you're going to add public int. Now, how we write foreign keys? Here, you write, first of all, you write the name of the other class where you want to reference the foreign key. And our class is called course. So you write public int course. You see the way it has appeared, course ID, get set. That is how you write a foreign key. So with this, it is actually going to know that, oh, when I see course, I know this guy is referencing a foreign key in another table. Now, in addition to this, on the next line, you're going to write something we call a navigation property. So navigation property, basically you write public course. Now you may be wondering, what's a navigation property? Why do I even need it? You can make it have the same name, course. Also add the get set. You can even make that course to be capital also. Course, so that it is starting with an uppercase. Now, what this one means, now, why do we need this guy that says course? You have added a foreign key. Now, the navigation property is to help us to access the properties of a course through the student. For example, if I have a student and I have created an object, for example, student 1 is my object from the class student. If I say student 1 dot course, I'm trying to access the course details going through the student class. It's basically navigating through, just like the way here, it's the navigation property. It can help me to access the course details. So in case I need the course name of a student, I'll be like student1 dot course dot name. Do you get my point there?
No, you pardon, sir.
So I'm explaining the foreign key attribute here. Line number 8 says public int course ID. Basically, course ID is a foreign key in this table of student. Just like the way you did the ER diagram, and you also specified foreign keys and primary keys. I think a number of you guys had, for example, a relationship between a truck and a driver. And then he said in the table of truck, driver ID is a foreign key, something like that. So even as here, we have a student, and the student does one course. So this student that does one course, we have a course ID in the student's table, meaning that whenever I'm saving a student, I need to specify which course he or she is doing. That is why we have line number 8. Then line number 9. In case we are asked, what is the name of the course that this student is doing? We have the student, but we want to figure out the course. The course the student is doing. Now we don't need to first go to the other table, of course, assuming we have a table that links the two. In fact, this is the table. This table that where you have specified course ID actually links the two. What you don't have to do is to say, go in the, maybe you're writing your query, go in the table of courses, look for a course with this course ID and get the name. You don't have to do that. You simply write that line number 9 that says public course. That one means that whenever I create an object of a student, for example, student X, if I say student X.name, they will give you the name. Student X.age, they'll give you the age. Student X.course, the moment you say .course, it is going to bring the course of that student, the whole object of that student. You'll find that if you say student.course, then .name, you have the name of the course that student is doing. I think most of it is going to make sense as we progress. All you need to know is that this is how you define a foreign key in your table. So for the case of now, the way you've written this, a student does one course, it also means that this course can be done by actually many students. This particular course can be done by many students. But I see time is really running. I don't know whether we shall get to see most of those things. But what I wanted to highlight mostly is that now that you've created the models, I wanted us to create just one last thing, and then we shall call it a day. This thing that we're going to create is basically a view. For example, I want to register a course, I want to edit a course, I want to delete a course. Or I want to register a student, I want to add a student, I want to delete a student. How do we do it? You see that folder called pages just below models. Inside it, you're going to add another folder called students. It's that one. Now inside there, right click on students and say, you're going to say add. You see the statement that says new scaffolded item. When it says scaffold, it's basically boilerplate code. That is something that can actually generate code for you. Yes, that one. It is loading something. And then you're going to select Razor Pages. The left. You see the left pane that says Razor Pages, where there is installed, common, then they have expanded, and they're showing it API, MVC, Razor component, Razor Pages. That one. Now you're going to select the last item, Razor Pages, using Entity Framework. Now, like I mentioned, Entity Framework basically is an ORM that aims to help us to create, to communicate with the database easily to make changes. Then you're going to say add. Now, the first drop down, it says model class. Remember, we are creating students, creating views for a student. You're going to select student there. That one. You see DB context class. Do you see the plus sign towards the end? Actually, at the end. Yes, that one. Click it. Now, you can, even this one is okay. Cool application context. That's okay. Just say add. So the context that they're talking about is basically a class where we define those tables specifically, where we define which tables Entity Framework should create for us. And then the database provider, you can leave it as SQL Server. Then you say add. So it's going to install about something like 2 or 3 packages that help in that. There are a number of things that it actually does, but I'm thinking that we shall maybe dig in to find those actual items it does with the time. But the number of things it is creating. First of all, in that folder of students, it is going to create for you files in there, which are the actual pages that you're going to be seeing. Then it is also going to create another folder there. Just before models, it's going to add a folder called data. And that's why it is going to put that class, which they have called full application context. It's going to add that class there. And also, since we are working with the databases, it is going to add a connection string somewhere for us to connect to the database. All that is done by that thing that is happening right now. Those packages shouldn't really take long. As it does that, do we have any question from someone?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead and ask.
Sir, do we need to use data when creating this application? Maybe when creating the models.
When you're creating the models, you would not really need data, but after creating the models, when you decide to create maybe a way to connect to your database, a way to interact with the entity framework, that one needs data to download a few packages. They are not actually heavy packages. I don't know why they are talking so long, but there are just a few packages. They are like only 3, which help in communicating with the database basically.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I see it is really taking some time, but it's actually done. Try to expand the students folder. Students folder under pages. So you can see it has generated a number of files for how you create a student, delete, details, edit, and index. And then we also had models. First go to app settings. Do you see a file called app settings? It is the second from the bottom. Just open it, double click that file. Click the app settings.json. That one, yes. So you realize line number 10, it says cool application context, and it has added for us a connection string to a database. Now this is a local database, which is a lightweight version, and actually can be also very useful. Then now this is a connection string that it's going to be using to connect to the database. Now there are two commands that you need to run. And then after that, you will be able to run the application. If you run the application right now, you're going to get errors. Yeah, but I wanted us to end this after running those two commands. Then we see what the application looks like, and then we call it a day. So that when you're practicing, when you're working on the track loading application, you can actually run the application and see things. So to run the two commands, go to Tools, see the top menu where there is File, Edit, View, there is Tools. Then you go to NuGet Package Manager. Package Manager console. So the two commands that we are running, the first one, you're going to type capital A for add. So you say add. Like adding in math, add. Now like the word add, put a hyphen. The hyphen like that small dash, the minus sign. Put the word migration. Put space. Write the word initial. Hit enter. Now, in case you're wondering what we are doing here, we are trying to make sure that our models are actually added as tables in the database. So when you say add migration, it creates for you, it creates a class with the name initial like you specified. And this class has instructions of creating a table whose name is this, whose ID is this, whose foreign key is this. Yeah, you don't really need to mind so much what's in that table, but just basically know every time you make changes to your models, you'll have to add migration. Every time, whether you have deleted, the moment you decide to delete, for example, a name from the student, you'll come and add a migration. It's the way you update your database. So the second command, you're going to say update dash database. You can simply type it there, update database. There is a dash between update and database. And then also hit enter. So the moment you say update database, just like how it sounds, it now creates the database. We have an issue here. The network. So did you install SQL Server?
Do I have to have SQL Server locally, or it comes with Visual Studio?
You need to have it installed, the SQL Server. I remember you had installed it someday. Because I remember you asked me what you should do next. There is someday when you told me you had installed it.
Yes, it was installed. I installed it.
Do you still have it installed?
I think I
You
removed
still
it because I started using Docker and I had like port interference things. Let me see if I can reinstall it first.
it's going to take time. Anyway, when you get some time, you can install it, and there should be a way where you can specify which port it should actually run on, so that it does not interfere with the other ports. And basically, the moment you're done installing it, you'll just come here on this on your Visual Studio tools. Then you go to package NuGet. Then you say NuGet package manager. Then you say package manager console and run that same command. This time you're only going to run update database. It's just going to add those tables in your SQL Server database. Now, when you're able to do that, that's when you're going to be able to run that application. So basically, when you run it, it's going to have, it is going to be even allowing you to create students. You'll be able to create a student, you can edit, you can add details, you can delete students. Yeah, basically it's a student app complete. So now when you're done with that, what I intend to, I had prepared something like an assignment. But basically the assignment is to create those models of the track loading application. You create the project, and I think let's do it individually. You create the project. After creating the project, you add models. After adding models, you can do this that we have actually done, where we, you create maybe a folder, say drivers. After creating all users, and then after creating the folder of users, you add a scaffolded item, so that you have now what that does, it actually creates for you those pages for creating a user, deleting a user, editing a user. You don't have to go through a lot to create them. So basically that is the assignment. The track loading application has officially been started. So you just need to create your models and then create a folder for users, and then create those pages in there. And basically we shall be starting from that next time. In case you get any challenge, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always available to support you. Yeah, do you have any question?
Not really. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the assignment is clear.
Yes, so basically we have to just follow the same way we have created these students, the cool application. The same way we're going to create the models for the track
Yes.
loading. Then we add
Yes.
the get sets for all the what? The attributes.
Yes.
All right, sir.
Okay. When you finish it during the week, you can share with me the link to your repo. You can just send it to my email, and then I'll look at it. In case you meet any challenges, you can contact me and either handle your issue, or I'll give it to one of the members at office to help you out. With that, let's all have a nice weekend, and I pray that God continues to give us the energy, the strength, and the wisdom to do His work, and also to prosper in whatever goal and whatever task we set ahead of us. Guys, have a blessed weekend.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Thank you, sir.